Guys, the purpose of this video is to make sure that you have all of the necessary elements of your research paper, as well as go through and double check a few things, a few common mistakes that I've seen some students making. So in this video, it's going to be very important that as you watch it and I tell you to do something, you need to pause the video, go back to your rough draft, and do the things that I'm asking you to do. So for this video, we're going to do some color coding. And so what I want you to do, first of all, so that you understand how the color coding works, is come up here and highlight your name. And then you're going to click on this A right here. It might say text color, it might say highlight. Click that down arrow. Make sure you click the highlight button, and then go ahead and highlight your name, that first color, that dark red. Okay, so again, you'll pause the video and go make sure that you understand how to do that. If you do it incorrectly and come here and do text color, then it's going to change the color of the text. That's not what you want to do, so go over here and do an edit, undo, and make sure that you highlight it correctly. Alright, the first thing that we're going to highlight is going to be our attention grabber. And so over here, I've kind of made sure that we have all of the things on there that we're going to highlight. So the first thing is our attention grabber, and I want you to highlight that in orange. Alright, so what you're going to do is come here, find your attention grabber, and where it ends, come up to the highlight, highlight that orange. Alright? So then the next thing that I want you to do is your background information, and we're going to highlight that purple. So your background information will go all the way to your thesis statement. So background information, and again, I want that to be purple, so go up to the A and the purple. Okay, so right now your paper should look something like this. The next thing that we're going to highlight is going to be your thesis statement. And as you can see, I want your thesis statement in yellow. So highlight your thesis statement and make sure that it goes yellow. So the reason that we're doing this is to make sure that you have all of the necessary elements of your research paper. So this will all go into the organization grade of the trait, of the 6 traits of writing when I grade these, to make sure you have everything. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to highlight the introduction sentence of all of your body paragraphs in green. So what I want you to do is go through each of these individually. So remember, your introduction sentence should introduce what you're going to talk about and tie it into your thesis statement. Remember, the introduction sentence can look very similar for all of your different body paragraphs. So mine is, the paleo diet is bad for your health because the lack of carbs can lead to hypothyroidism. So come back here to your thesis statement, make sure that the lack of carbs can lead to hypothyroidism, or whatever thesis point you were talking about in your introduction matches up. So the paleo diet is bad for your health because the lack of carbs can lead to hypothyroidism. Remember, I wanted that highlighted in green, so come here, highlight green. I'm going to go ahead and do that for all of my body paragraphs. So again, I repeat, the paleo diet is bad for your health because the undesirable foods can lead to binge eating. So I highlight that, and it is green. And then I come down to my third body paragraph, the paleo diet is bad for your health because the lack of dairy can lead to decreased bone mass. So I have all of my introduction sentences in green. All right? The next thing that I want you to do is your concluding sentences. So remember, your concluding sentence kind of wraps up what you were talking about. There's a difference between concluding sentences and transition sentences. Remember, your transition sentence talks about what you're going to be talking about next. So let's go to your first body paragraph. After all your evidence, we're going to leave that all alone. All right? So you should be able to see where your concluding sentence ends or begins, because it should be right after some sort of source. All right? So I know that my concluding sentence is going to be right here. So I want you, it could be 1 or maybe 2 sentences, concluding sentences, I want to be in pink. Okay? As I can see here, this next sentence right here is going to be a transition sentence because it talks about what I'm going to talk about next. Transition sentences, I want you to highlight in red. So let's go to our next body paragraph. So here we have a source. I know that my next sentence is most likely going to be my concluding sentence, and so that's highlighted in pink. And then the sentence after that that tells about what I'm going to be talking about next is highlighted in red. And once again, here's my body paragraph talking about that it leads to decreased bone mass. I have my evidence in here. Obviously, yours will be longer because you have more note cards in there. This was just my practice. And so I come here. This is my concluding sentence. Again, it wraps up what I was talking about. It's going to be pink. And remember, since this was my last body paragraph, I don't have another body paragraph, so there will not be any red here that talks about your transition because there is no transition. So then you should have 1 to 2 sentences per thesis point. I'm sorry, probably 2 to 3 sentences per thesis point that does the summary. And then you need to go in there and find your thesis statement again. So find your thesis statement. The paleo diet is bad for your health because the lack of carbs can lead to hypothyroidism, the undesirable foods can lead to binge eating, and the lack of dairy decreases bone mass. And remember, from above, our thesis statement we color-coded yellow. So come back here, and you're going to color-code that yellow. Before that, you should have, I don't know, probably about this long, not too long. Your conclusion, your summary should not take up an entire page, maybe a quarter of the page, a third at the most. And then it should be divided by your thesis statement and then your call to action. Again, call to action, 2 to 3 sentences. It should not take up a whole bunch of space. So that will kind of set up, if any of your paragraphs do not look like this, if any of your body paragraphs do not have green and then your evidence, pink and red, you're missing some information. So you need to go in there and make sure that you have all of that. So I want you to take a moment and go ahead and pause this video, go back to your rough draft, make sure that it looks like this. And then once you have that, come back to the video and push play again. What we're going to do now is just go ahead and check for some information, some common mistakes that I see a lot of students have been making. The first one is after you just got done highlighting, you should be able to see that you have 5 body paragraphs. If you have less than that or more than that, then you need to raise your hand right now and make sure that I can come help you get that fixed. Another common mistake that I'm seeing is making sure that your thesis statement, make sure that your the order of your thesis statement, these 3 thesis points, match the order of your body paragraphs. And this is still another big issue that I've been seeing, your citations. Remember, this is called an in-text citation, also known as a parenthetical citation. All right, so all of these right here. So this tells me again, remember, that I got all of these facts right here from this source, and I read from the source up. So then that tells me that I got all of these facts from this source. So the information between these 2 sources came from this fact. All right, so as you're looking at your in-text citations, remember, I'm going to go back to my Works Cited to look at this. Remember, as you're looking at your Works Cited page, you'll see that you have all of your sources listed there, and you have, if it's an article title, you have the first 2 words highlighted. First 2 words highlighted, or you have the person's last name highlighted. That's what's going to go in those in-text citations. So just make sure that if it's an article title, that it's in quotation marks. If it's not an article title, like I have Stein right here, it doesn't go in quotation marks because it's just her last name. Another thing that I'm seeing, remember these ... things, that's called an ellipses. And you're only going to use an ellipses to signify to your reader that there's more to that title. So as I'm reading this paper and I see this fact right here, I know that it came from the source overweight and, which means that I can go back to that person's Works Cited page, find overweight and know that it came from this source. So what I could do is I could come here and copy that source. I could put it into my browser, and I could go exactly to the article that that person found that particular fact from. So it's a way to check, not only to check facts, but it's also a way for people to say this is where I got my information. Remember, after you're giving the fact, you put, let me go to one that's a little easier to read. You put a space, so this is the fact that I wanted to do. You put a space, then the parentheses, then the quotation marks, or just the person's last name, a parentheses, the period goes on the outside, and there are 2 spaces after the period. Make sure that there are 2 spaces there. Another issue that I've been seeing a lot is people using the word I. If you wanted to, you could do a Command F and type the word I and try to find all the word I's. Now, it's obviously going to find all of them. In fact, it found 234 of them in my paper. A common phrase you might do is I think. So if you come here, you can see in my paper and my call to action, I said, I think everyone can agree that the increase in obesity of Americans needs to be addressed. So I don't want to put I think in there. Instead, I just want to say, everyone can agree that the increase in obesity of Americans needs to be addressed. That's much more powerful. So those are some of the big glaring issues that I've been seeing. Again, hopefully I have this posted in the classroom. Make sure that you go over this again. Make sure that you've got all of those things. These are things to look for not only in your own paper, but as you are doing the green peer review sheet for someone else. So as long as you follow these steps, you should be looking good to hand in a nice final copy.